New episode of Why is Everybody Stupid? Uh, Helping people before and after leaving Islam is what I'm working on right now for these episodes. Philosophy, ready to learn more philosophy. That's the group we're in. Change my view. We can refute God. Uh, I got this idea because somebody in this group, I think, might be the Lex Friedman group, gave me the idea to submit what I'm trying to do to a subreddit called Change My View, where you lead with, this phrase right at the beginning of everything. That's the whole point of all the posts in that group. I like the style of it. I formatted this a little bit to be of that style. Um, so the context is a lot of people believe that we can't refute God because everybody has a different view of God. They say we can't refute God when we can't even agree on a definition of God. So somebody said this to me, and so here's my view. Uh, so that ignores the fact that each one of us, I'm sorry, each one of those different conceptions of God is a theory all by itself. And each theory deserves its own consideration. There's no need to lump them all together. And it doesn't even make sense to lump them together uh, because a bunch of them will be contradicting each other. The correct perspective, as far as I know, is every theist has their own theory of God. Each one is a separate theory. Each theory deserves its own consideration and potentially its own refutation. And then, of course, there is overlap uh, where two people might think this, share the same conception of God, at least in some aspects. For each theory, ask of it, what is your purpose? The purpose needs to be clearly explained, no ambiguity or uh, no ambiguity that would cause any kind of problem. We can't be perfect, but we can do a good job. If there's ambiguity, we already have reason to reject it. Uh, this is because ambiguous theories make contradictory implications. And this is why in science we reject any theory that is ambiguous. This is the logic used to reject all superstitions and myths. And to be clear, we can't be perfectly unambiguous, but we can do a good enough job. That's what I said over there. So, if a theory passes the no ambiguity test, now it's time to scrutinize whether the theory actually serves its purpose. And if it doesn't serve its purpose, then we reject it. If it does serve its purpose, then we don't reject it for this thing. There could be other ways that it's wrong. So we scrutinize it in all the other ways, like checking for contradictions between this theory and all the other knowledge. To clarify, if a theory is refuted, that doesn't mean you can't change the theory so that the new version no longer has the flaw in the old version. You can save a theory that way. And note, the new version deserves its own consideration. I've done this with every God theory that I've ever encountered, and I refuted them all. Usually, the refutation is something like, it's vague, it doesn't define its purpose. It's I don't say this here, but that means it's unfalsifiable. Um, in other cases, the purpose is clear, but then we can refute it because it fails to serve its purpose. This is like a way of pointing out an internal contradiction. So to be clear, I can be wrong that a theory is ambiguous, And I can be wrong that a contradiction is actually a contradiction. And this is just a consequence of the fact that I'm not perfect. Humans are fallible. We can argue about whether something is ambiguous, and we can argue about whether something is a contradiction. These are the standards I use to judge whether or not God exists, and it's the same standards we use for physics theories and any other theories from any other field where the scientific approach is being applied. And then I say, change my view. Initially, I did not have this. This got added because, well, I'll explain it later as it comes up. So, Ovariaz in Summer says, I've heard some atheist YouTubers say they are soft or agnostic atheists about theism or gods in general, and hard Gnostic atheists about the Abrahamic God or the Christian God. They can make a positive claim that this God doesn't exist. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to complain about wording or anything. Backbone YT. We can refute religion, but we can't refute the entire concept of gods. So I said, that doesn't change my view, and I don't see why you thought it would. You're not explaining why I'm wrong. Your post title says that we can refute God. Let's say I believe there's a God who created the world and then just let it be without interference, without sending any religion or prophets or holy scriptures. You have no way to refute the God that I believe in. However, you can refute Islam and religions alike. So he says your post title says that we can refute God. And I wasn't sure. Does that mean he was just replying to the post title and he didn't read the post? He says, if you have no way to refute the God that I believe in, sorry, you have, not if. So I said, if you didn't read the post, how would you know if I can't refute this God that he believes in? If you did read my post, please explain how I'm wrong by quoting something I said and explaining why it's wrong. So they reply, your basis is that everything needs proof and needs to make sense to us. But a hypothetical God who doesn't care what happens to the planet after he created it doesn't care about our proofs and our understanding. Just because he's ambiguous doesn't mean he's not real. You can be 99.9999% sure that the God is not real, but you can never be 100% sure that God is not real. That's what faith is, believing without knowing. I'm 99 point blah 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 percent sure that God is not real, in the same way that I don't believe unicorns are real. But the entire belief in God hangs on to that 0.00001% chance that he is real, and you can't refute that minuscule chance. That's why people have been arguing over God's existence for as long as we've been on this planet. Nobody will ever be able to refute God completely. So I said, I think you're missing the point in the original post. This hypothetical God you're talking about is an idea that you came up with, or somebody else did. What is the purpose of that idea? And does that idea actually serve its purpose? If no, please explain how. Sorry, if so, please explain how, and then we can judge that. So if it doesn't serve its purpose, it's wrong. That's how we refute it. He didn't do these steps yet, or at least he didn't do it in front of me, or he didn't show that he did it. He didn't write it down for us to read it. So far, your God theory is ambiguous. It doesn't spell out any purpose or why it actually serves its purpose. This stuff you're saying about probability of theories being true or false is not how science works. Physicists do not think relativity is 99% likely to be true or superstitions are 99% likely to be fake. To the part where they said, that's why people have been arguing over God's existence for as long as we've been on this planet. So I say, so I guess they don't know how to refute God because they are confused about the idea that we should use probabilities to judge theories. This whole, 0.0001% stuff. They said, but the entire belief in God hangs on to that 0.001% chance that he's real. Okay, so the entire belief of, put anything else here, Santa Claus, Bigfoot, walking under a ladder gives you bad luck, hangs on to that 0.001% chance. They don't. He doesn't say that for those things, as far as I know. Okay, I'm gonna skip this one. This is the one that resulted in that edit. Let's see. Okay. Um, I didn't know this conversation happened. Um, one DDAT says needs to be called God hypothesis, otherwise it confuses the issue. So I say, well, you weren't confused. I think you're saying that some people will be confused, but I don't think your idea will prevent them from getting confused by the semantics of this topic. What I've done in the past, and I've seen others do this too, is to say something like, note that when I say theory, I'm referring to ideas, conclusions, arguments, conjectures, criticisms, hypotheses, experiments, predictions, logic, propositions, assumptions, solutions, problems, everything. I'm not bigging myself up, but I'm not a lay, everyday religious person for whom a big gotcha against atheists is when evolution is called a theory. It's not a gotcha. I love it when people complain about stuff like this. It's easy to argue against, and it's only a gotcha if you don't know how to argue against it. Um, True, it's useless, but it's a gotcha for them though, and unnecessarily forces you to spend time teaching them how a theory doesn't actually mean a hunch, guess, etc. More hygienic language would avoid these distractions. I haven't had that experience at all. And in any case, teaching them is something I'll do only if they are acting in good faith, in which case I love it. It helps them improve their critical thinking skills. So that sounds like a solution, not a problem. Um, EGB, Yeah, interesting line of thought, OP. This is a piece of clever mathematics called Gödel's incompleteness theorem. The second theorem goes like this. I'm paraphrasing. If a system, hold on, what did I say to this? Yeah. So if a system of proving things is complicated enough to express arithmetic, then it cannot prove its own consistency. My view of your argument is somewhat similar. If the assumptions about any god or gods is detailed enough for the god or gods to matter in relation to human lives, then that god or gods are falsifiable. The deist god or the immobile mover or are distant enough not to be falsifiable, but a god who punishes homosexuality by sending earthquakes is. And then they said, edit, I'm not trying to change your view, merely expressing my version of it. Edit 2, I think I have come up with a maxim. Unfalsifiable gods are irrelevant. So I just add, I want to change one small thing to your view. Unfalsifiable gods are nonsense and therefore irrelevant. And I would generalize it from gods to ideas. Unfalsifiable ideas are nonsense. But I would keep both versions. See. The whole concept of a god is unfalsifiable. That is, it's impossible to prove that it's not real. And they go on to say, let's see. Why waste your time trying to refute something that is vague and unfalsifiable? Okay, so I didn't. So here's the point. Superstitions are unfalsifiable, which is why we reject them. Um, and they said, can you prove that Kevin doesn't exist? Nope. I said, sure I can. The same way I proved that demons and other superstitions don't exist. And they said, so why waste your time trying to refute something that is vague and unfalsifiable? I said, I wouldn't. It's already proved wrong by the fact that it's unfalsifiable. I said that in my OP, so this is a very weird question to be asking me. So The only other line of discussion that I didn't discuss the reason I didn't discuss it is there is some good content in there, but it quickly, or maybe not so quickly, goes to um, trolling, and that's not very interesting for this discussion. Although trolling on its own, for its own discussion, is worth talking about, and I am going to do a video on that eventually. To refuse something that isn't logical. A claim needs to be quantified for it to be logical, sound, and valid. See how their discussion goes. This might be a good point. Yeah. You might be able to find principles that are working in both areas. Where does this discussion go? Come on. Does it end well? Okay, here's what it ends. Let's see what was said right before that. So this person is saying they don't know. This is the best part of it. They don't know what this person is arguing against. So when you see statements like this, another way to describe it is they're talking past each other. They don't even like. Let's say both of them don't know what the other one thinks they're disagreeing about. What the point of any of this was. Let's remind ourselves that we can refute God. And what did he start with? Okay, how do you refute the deistic God theory? Wait. Uh, did I reply to this? Kind of confused, lost here. Why is it not showing? Okay. So they said, how do you refute a deistic God? The deistic God started the universe, then stepped away and let it proceed completely naturally with zero involvement. And in any case you think is ambiguous, this God is invisible, pink unicorn, and the creation of the universe. Okay, so because he said this invisible pink unicorn, and I already had a post that had a similar thing, I thought to copy paste it, and I asked him, to consider what I said. This is the method in which I would refute this theory. And they replied, why do you think there should be an answer, or that the person you're asking would know the answer? So, example question, why is it invisible? would know the answer. They're the ones who coming up with the theory. If the theory doesn't have it, it's just vague. What is this stupid ass question? What did I say to this? Why do you think there should be an answer? Oh, not yeah. Why wouldn't there be an answer? And then this is goofy. God, he brings up the arbitrary. So this is where, and then yes, I remember now. It's all coming back to me. And then, yep, he. So now let me show you what happens here. Fast forwarding. In order to change my view, you'll need to convince me that you understand my view. And what I figured out was that person wasn't understanding me. If you misunderstand my view, then whatever you think you're pointing out as a flaw in my ideas isn't actually a flaw in my ideas. And instead, it's a flaw in the straw man argument that you invented by accident. It sounds obvious, doesn't it? Well, I decided to write this because somebody already got this wrong in the comments below. This person I was just talking about. I was asking them if they considered the possibility that they misunderstood the OP and they wouldn't answer. And they also weren't quoting anything I said or explaining what they think my argument is in their own words anywhere in the discussion. These are the basic things people need to do in order to check that they understand each other. Obviously, it is the case that you can't point out a flaw in something you don't even understand yet. If you want to review the discussion yourself, I'm talking to the audience now, so you can judge what happened. Here's the comment. You can find this post, click on this comment, it'll take you there. And I recommend reading everything above it and below it to figure out what's going on there. And if you think I'm wrong, I want you to tell me so I can get on the right side of the truth. I would like to improve if I made mistakes. All right, and that's it.